What's up, welcome back to Nowstalgia. Dave here with my review of Star Wars The Bad Batch Season 3. The third and final season has ended, the series finale. Gonna get into Season 3 as well as The Bad Batch as a whole, what it represents within Star Wars storytelling, Star Wars animation, and the future we might find with Star Wars animation as well. So a lot to dig into here, of course, full spoilers for the series. But yeah, let's just jump right in. Star Wars The Bad Batch Season 3 is a effective and solid closer for this unheralded Star Wars animation series. If you think back on the humble beginnings that The Bad Batch had, being introduced in Clone Wars Season 7, not the most exciting announcement for the next Star Wars animated show when it came out. Looking back, of course, on these 3 seasons, The Bad Batch really represents the sequel to the Clone Wars and the sequel to perhaps the greatest triumph of the Clone Wars, which was the humanization of the clone characters from that period of Star Wars storytelling. Ultimately, The Bad Batch was more of a smaller stakes story. At this point, The Bad Batch has really outkicked its coverage and I think become quite well liked for what it was. Season 3 was very serialized, very plot heavy, but ultimately the core characters of The Bad Batch, you have a relationship with them at this point. So seeing their arcs concluded in Season 3 was quite satisfying. And now there's a tantalizing place for the future of the series, the future of Omega. I think it was kind of obvious that the Omega character would lead Star Wars animation forward. That's abundantly clear with the conclusion of Season 3. So I think we're in a pretty good spot. It's also funny to reflect on that, 3 days after the Bad Batch series finale, we're getting Tales of the Empire dropping in full on Disney Plus, the sequel, pseudo-sequel to Tales of the Jedi from a few years ago, which is also kind of connecting back to Clone Wars. Of course, the trailer suggesting we'll be spending a lot of time with Barriss Offee's character, so that's exciting. But yeah, in terms of the Bad Batch, obviously Omega will lead us forward in the future of Star Wars animation. We'll get to that at the end here, but just want to go through some of the stuff I liked about the Bad Batch overall. I probably would have loved to get a lot more of it, but like the whole clone rights stuff on Pandora and just kind of the future of the clone characters and what happens to them as the Imperials replace them with, human recruits for stormtroopers. That was more heavy in Season 2. I would have loved to get a lot more of that just because that's kind of an interesting insight into Star Wars storytelling you don't always get. Of course, the Commander Cody character coming back in Season 2 around that storyline, very exciting. I'd like to see more about that in some way, but I'm not sure if we're going to get it given where the time skip at the end leaves us, All the stuff with Tantus and Hemlock and Project Necromancer in Season 3, as well as, in Season 2, that I think was pretty good for being the, conflict of Bad Batch, given it's a smaller stakes series, because it's still providing some of that trademark Filoni contextualization we've associated with his reign over at Lucasfilm, where that is kind of coloring in motivations for Palpatine for the sequel trilogy, just like we're seeing with The Mandalorian lately. So I find it fun just to kind of fill in the lore in a manner like that, because again, this is a low stakes animated children's cartoon. We have to keep our, I think, expectations in check, and I think that's an easy way to kind of do it. In Season 3, we get the Asajj Ventress comeback, just one episode, but of course that was heavily teased in the trailer in the lead up to the season, and definitely something I did not see coming, given the seemingly final fate of Ventress in the Dark Disciple novel, which of course was based off unproduced Clone Wars scripts when Clone Wars was canceled the first time around. So Ventress' comeback, you'd have to imagine would be in the Omega sequel series, right? What is Ventress going to be up to? We know she's kicking around. Tantalizing, to say the least, just because the Ventress character also had a fair amount of growth across from Clone Wars over the years, over the seasons, and now there's opportunity for even more of that, honestly. It's pretty cool. If there's anything to criticize about Season 3 of The Bad Batch specifically, I would say that it felt kind of safe in how it concluded. There's no unpredictable character death. It's not really doing anything outside of what you predict. I think it's fine, but it would have been cool to subvert in some way, I suppose. Ultimately, it's wrapped up pretty cleanly, right? Tantus gets decommissioned, Tarkin takes all that funding and puts it to surprise, the Death Star. We understand where things are going, and you're operating within this timeline that it's a bit constricted, so I guess it's not the worst thing in the world. I love the Zilla Beast again in the finale. It was cool to have the Zillowbees come back into the fold on the Bad Batch. Just a really fun nod back to Clone Wars. I was kind of expecting another member of the Batch to die. Obviously Tech dies in the season 2 finale. Amazing moment, very effective, right? I was kind of surprised that everyone lived. I thought Echo was going to die in the finale, the way it was going for a while. But Echo, Hunter, Wrecker, Crosshair, they're all still kicking. Emery's now kind of squatted up. Of course, we know Rex is out there. It's fun. But obviously, the Omega sequel series, after there's a clear time skip at the end of Bad Batch towards the, early days of the rebellion, it's probably at least 10 years in the future. Maybe close to 15 years, judging by how long we know that time frame is. It's pretty exciting. So now the opportunity for Omega to be a rebel pilot, rebel recruit of some kind. You could see her interact with many characters we know, obviously, from the live action and animated, screen, but also because of Omega's young age, right? Just she's quite young in Bad Batch and still a young woman after this time skip. Omega's young enough to exist in live action, in time of The Mandalorian, in the time of Ahsoka. She's younger than all those characters. So I'm not sure we're going to go there. We did get live action Ezra after all. It could happen. So I think that's a possibility. But yeah, something to chew on, right? It's fun. It's a good time to be a Star Wars fan, though. We're getting a lot of, I think, tantalizing stuff. I mean, the fact that the Barris Offee arc is going to continue in 3 days is pretty cool. Yeah, I think looking back on the Bad Batch, I think my absolute favorite moment was honestly in season 1. I thought the 2-episode arc where Captain Rex shows up for the first time and interacts with the Batch, like that was like top tier like Star Wars animation to me. I thought that was absolutely like breathtaking, like that arc. And since then, it's just been fun to like spend time with the characters, which was good enough for me. But yeah, let me know, what was your favorite moment about Star Wars: The Bad Batch? What did you like most about season 3? What are you excited to see next from the Omega series and what's to come? And for more Star Wars, more movie reviews, more TV reviews, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.